Have you ever met someone who smiled even when they had every reason to cry? In a quiet, faraway village, nestled between the hills and rice fields, lived an old woman. Her house was small, resting peacefully under the shade of a massive banyan tree. She had no family, no wealth, and her husband had passed away many years ago. Yet every single day she wore the same gentle smile, as if she had discovered a secret the world had forgotten. People in the village called her the Lady of Light, not because of magic or miracles, but because her presence brought a strange kind of peace. No one ever heard her complain. While others struggled with droughts, debts, or worries about the future, she simply sat under her tree, smiling, listening, and offering her quiet company to anyone who needed it. Children ran to her when they were scared. Adults visited her when they felt lost. She didn't give advice like a teacher or a healer. She just told stories, simple ones. Stories that somehow made the heavy burdens on people's hearts feel lighter. And the strange thing was, her stories worked. But what was her secret? Why did she smile even when life gave her so little? One day, a woman named Radha came to her, crying, desperate, and the old woman did what she always did. She smiled. And she began to speak. The old woman did what she always did. She smiled. And she began to speak. Her voice was soft, like the wind whispering through leaves. "You see, child," she said to Radha, "sometimes when the world feels too heavy, we need to remember the simple things." Radha sat there, wiping her tears, unsure of what to expect. The old woman didn't ask for explanations or offer solutions. Instead, she looked into Radha's tired eyes and said, "Let me tell you a story." This wasn't unusual. The villagers knew that whenever someone was hurting, the old woman would respond not with answers, but with a story. And somehow those stories always touched the right place. She leaned back against the tree, her eyes gazing at the sky above. Once, in a time not too different from ours, there was a man who thought he had lost everything, she began. Radha, still overwhelmed by fear and uncertainty, listened quietly, drawn into the calm of the woman's presence and the gentle rhythm of her tale. "There was a man who thought he had lost everything," the old woman said, her voice steady and low like a river flowing through silence. Radha leaned in closer, as if each word carried a warmth she hadn't felt in weeks. "This man," the old woman continued, "had no food, no money, no family. He sat by the riverbank every day crying, wondering why life had been so cruel. He believed there was nothing left for him." Radha nodded slowly. It felt like the story mirrored her own fear. The fear of being left behind, forgotten. One day, the old woman said, an old woman came walking by. She saw the man and asked, "Why are you crying, my son?" The man replied, "Because I have nothing." But she only smiled. Radha looked at the storyteller, eyes wide. "What did she say?" She pointed to the river, to the trees, to the sun. And she said, "You have this moment. You are still breathing, you are still alive, and that means you still have something." The words hung in the air. Radha's breathing slowed, her heart beginning to listen more than her ears. Radha's breathing slowed, her heart beginning to listen more than her ears. The man didn't understand at first, the old woman continued, her voice like the breeze after rain. He looked around, confused. "But what good is the river if I am hungry? What use are the trees if I am alone?" The old woman in the story simply smiled and said, "Happiness doesn't always come from what you have. It begins with what you see." She told him to try just for one day to notice the small things. The coolness of the river water on his hands, the way the sun painted gold across the leaves, the birds that sang even when no one listened. And so he did, the old woman said, looking into Radha's eyes. He started to see beauty again, not because his life had changed, but because his thoughts had. Radha sat in silence, letting the idea settle inside her like sunlight through clouds. The old woman smiled. "You see, my dear, the world outside didn't become kinder. He became kinder to himself. The world outside didn't become kinder. He became kinder to himself." Radha let those words echo in her mind. Something shifted inside her, not a solution to her problems, but a strange sense of calm. Like maybe, just maybe, She didn't have to drown in fear to survive the storm. The old woman placed a gentle hand on Radha's and said, "If you wake up each morning and say to yourself, 'Today will be a good day,' your heart will find the strength to move forward. But if you only think about what could go wrong, you'll carry a weight too heavy to bear." Radha breathed deeply. "I'll try," she whispered. "I'll try to think good thoughts." "That's the first step," the old woman said with a smile. And so Radha left the little house beneath the banyan tree with a lighter heart. Every morning after, she greeted the day with hope. She worked hard, cared for her children and waited, not with fear but with faith. Weeks later, a letter arrived. Her husband had found work in the city. Help was on the way. Tears streamed down her face, but this time they were filled with joy.